Hello, it's that time of year again, the race of the falling leaves. Lecco awaits us, the final monument of the cycling season. Well, it's been a season beset by bad weather, and today is no different. Certainly in Italy, the mist, the rain, the cloud, and all the mystique that surrounds this fantastic race is about to bring to an end another great season. 13 degrees at the arrival, third year in a row that we finished in Lecco. Zal, Rodriguez, and who else will add to the list of winners here? It's the 107th Giro di Lombardia, the Tour of Lombardy here live on Eurosport. Oh, good afternoon and welcome along. This is the scene at the arrival. 3.5 hours of race has gone. We started off from Bergamo for the second year running, all the way down to Valcavo, Colle Brianza, then the great Muro di Sormano. I can tell you the riders have been above that, but there is big news from out on the course already. 242 kilometers in total, 9 shorter than last year, but that beast leg-sapping climb of Sormano, the one that has really broken it up yet again. Villa Vergano, where we expect it to be decided, but the Madonna del Ghisallo, another famed climb in this part of the world. Steeped in cycling legend, it promises to be an exciting afternoon. So the sign-in this afternoon went like this. Bergamo playing host to a farewell to the season for many and a farewell to careers for some as well. More about that in a minute. But the stars were off in mid-morning, and the new world champion Rui Costa, all in white, a decision that might upset the traditionalists, but there he was. And he rolled off with the rest of his colleagues. And it was always going to be a big break to get into. Attack straight away, but I can tell you the first of many breaks we've had so far didn't come along until around 60 kilometers in. A crash earlier on with 90 kilometers to go meant that Vincenzo Nibali, the big favourite for the race, was down. He was out. What an awful slice of luck for a man who just missed out on the podium again through bad luck last week after Italy had ridden a fantastic race at the roads. Nibali misses out. He's been in great form, but he hobbles off, and his off-season ends in rather flat fashion. So Nibali off to hospital to get that checked out, just as many other riders have been. We'll go through a full rundown in a moment of those who did not start and did not finish. But as you can see, the mist and the clouds, as Nicholas Roach, Nairo Quintana, Mick Rogers, Robert Hazink and the rest led them up. This was the Muro di Sormano. Record time was set just 12 months ago by Purito Rodriguez, the eventual winner of the Giro di Lombardia last year. Ivan Basso there for Cannondale as well. As you can see, this legendary climb, 27% in places. It's an absolute hellish experience if you have to pedal up there. Nairo Quintana, most natural climber in the bunch, the winner of the King of the Mountains at the Tour de France, of course, podium place man in France this year. He set the tone for the climb and has since set the tone on the descent as well, alongside Alejandro Valverde. Valverde third place at the World Championships last week. And the leaders of the race so far: Caruso, Santa Romita, Valverde, Gasparotto's joined them for Astana, and Nairo Quintana still out there as well. So, live onto the course at Giro di Lombardia, 60.9 kilometers to go. Brian Smith is alongside me, Rob Hatch, in the commentary box. And Brian, it's the end of the season. I have to admit to this being my favourite race of the season for my own special reasons. What does it mean to you?
Well, history shows that this race is the season closes the season off, and the change with the World Championships going from August now to late September. This race has actually moved forward in the last year or so, and it's a great race to finish the season off. But now the globalisation of world cycling means that after this race we've got Beijing, and all of a sudden we're into next year already with January with the Tour Down Under. This was the catch. there was 5 riders in front. The 5 riders were Caruso from the team of Perito Rodriguez, that's Katusha, Santa Rita, BMC, the Italian champion, Gasparotto, Astana, Quintana and Valverde of Movistar. And it was that man that pulls so many faces all season long, and that's Tommy Voeckler of Europcar. Caught them on just after the descent, and now on the attack on his own. But we have been over most of the major climbs of today. 2 climbs still to come, and that includes the Madonna del Ghisallo, which is coming up very soon.
Madonna del Ghisallo is, of course, a great museum of cycling as well. It is one of the big historic climbs in this part of the region. We saw the Muro di Sormano, and that was really the first of cycling's great expeditions into hellish climbs, if you like. Those big climbs like the Zoncolan in the other part of the country, just the other side of the Dolomites, of course. And that started cycling's love affair, if you will, in rather sordid a way, really, with those ridiculously steep climbs. We've seen it brought back 12 months ago. Hadn't been used since 1962 until 2012. Rodriguez was the main man up it last year. Remember, Gilbert crashed on the way down it 12 months ago, as you reminded me just before we came on air. That is more or less out the way now, but Ghisallo to come, you say. And what about perhaps this race again being decided on the new final climb, Villa Vergano?
Well, that's over the last couple of years. That's where Zaug and Rodriguez made their moves to win the events in the consecutive years there. But I tell you what, over the last 8 years, there have been a lot of riders doubling up. Paolo Bettino, Cunego, and this could be the year of Rodriguez. He is in the group behind, and he stands a very good chance of winning back-to-back races.
Welcome back, everybody. The race of the falling leaves, La Corsa delle Foglie Morte, 57.7 kilometers to go, and the site of the brand new world champion Rui Costa of Movistar, racing with Alejandro Valverde today. And there's a nasty little angry reaction in Spain to a photo that was published on Twitter earlier on this week. I think it was yesterday. There was a coffee ride, and right at the top of Ghisallo there's a little cafe as well. And the guy just stopped for coffee there. Movistar guys riding together who last week were, let's say, supposed to be enemies at the World Championships. Didn't quite work out that way, and I know that Perito Rodriguez and Vincenzo Nibali, a couple of those involved, weren't happy with how the finale played out at the end of an epic race in Florence. And of course Rui Costa sitting next to Valverde's teammate, all smiles, all happy, like they would be on a training ride, as we see Marcel Wies having a little slip off. He just attacked a moment ago. A man who said he's dreamed of winning this race. It is the race he grew up watching and dreaming of as a cyclist. You can see the injury to his left thigh. The latest in a long line of men who have crashed today. We've seen, unfortunately, Jonathan Fumeau of IM Cycling as well, and Facchini of Androni, both being put into ambulances in the last 15 minutes or so. Good news for Wies is that he's back on his bike, but that will surely knock his confidence, Brian.
No, definitely. You get far into a race like this, and you crash in one of the corners. Obviously trying to get to the front of this race. He was on the attack, so taking a few risks, and sometimes we take these risks that, you know, comes back and bites you, and it has done for Marcel Wies. And Wies has been showing some good form over the last few weeks, especially in the Tour of Britain. He was up there and showing some good form, but unfortunately for him, he just went into that corner a bit too fast, slid out. As we can see, the weather here for Lombardy is not the best. We have got kind of slight drizzles of rain pretty much all day today, and that's where it's sometimes difficult to judge it, because there are dry patches, there are wet patches, and we've seen quite a few riders come to grief on the descent of the Sormalo, as we see the group, general regroupment, probably about almost 40 riders now at the front of this race. So they will look around, see what teammates they have, see who have got numbers, and then they'll decide how they're going to plan the following 55 kilometres.
Well, for those who might have dropped out the back, at least it's scenic. It is a beautiful part of the world around here, the region of Lombardy, which this is the race just to the north of Milan, around Lake Como, finishing. I used to finish in Como itself, which you see at the back of the peloton. Well,
I was interested to know, Rob, that on the Sermano that it was in fact Saxo Tinkoff leading Contador up there, and Nicholas Roach and Michael Rogers were used in that. Mike was up towards the front, and Mike had a good performance in the week in Milano-Torino. So obviously they've got options. They want to try and push it, but towards the top in the steeper parts, it was in fact Movistar that came to the front with Quintana. So into the penultimate of the climbs, that's the Gisalo, and we have got a climb towards the finish, same as the last couple of years. Very steep climb, and that's where the race has been won and lost. We said just before the break that normally if you win this race it comes in twos. We go back to Bettini, we've got Cunego, we've got
Cunego's won it 3 times as well.
Gilbert, so you know, the world champion is towards the front. He looked very good in the Sermano. As I say, Marcel, we still having problems with these bikes. So again, on the attack now behind the main group as we hit this climb. So this climb isn't so bad, but you got to remember the race of this distance, it does start to bite the legs.
It's certainly going to be hard now for Marcel Wies. Will have taken something at the legs and the confidence.
I tell you what, Vokler's got 1:32. They haven't shown him yet. So he is still in front of this race. This is Group 1. This is the main peloton, about 40 riders. We're just catching Marcel Wies, but again, nobody really looking at controlling the peloton here.
Markus Berghardt there on your screen, German rider riding for BMC, and it's a big day for BMC today. Marco Pinotti puts the end to his career. He'll be going to work for them. You said we hadn't seen Thomas Vauclair yet, and here he is, 1:32 ahead. Always an extremely dangerous man, whether he's pulling his tongue, shouting away, making faces, or just simply battling like he does. You've got to keep an eye on this man.
Yeah, you never know what sort of form he's in. When he's on good form, he is really on some good form, and has proven in the past that he does some great performances. But again, on his own, with just under 55 kilometres to go, we have been over the hardest climb. The Gisalo is not so bad, but again, after this distance, it does bite the legs, and a lot of riders just trying to save as much as they can for this final climb. There is a general regroupment now, and the numbers coming to the front. You can see Katusha taking it up. They have got about 3 or 4 riders in this front group, including Rodriguez, who won it last year in the Thunderstorms, and they have got Danny Marino also in this group.
You mentioned Alberto Contador. He lost 30 seconds up Sormano, but you could see his inimitable style just pedalling up towards the front there. Now the Madonna del Ghisallo climbs up, maximum 14%, 12% towards the end. As Brian said, there's a nice little bit of a falls flat in the middle. Goes up from Bellagio, famous, beautiful place by the lake, up to the Madonna del Ghisallo itself. 500 metres of climbing. That's around 8 kilometres. And this is Thomas Vauclair, who next year, Brian, might well be riding in the World Tour. Yeah,
it looks very much like that, and good luck to them. They have got a very good team, and I think they're looking at taking on some more riders. So you can just see 2 minutes back, and the thumbs up for Tommy Vauclair.
He's great. He's old school, isn't he? Didn't even look across. Just a nonchalant little acknowledgement there of what happened. And Thomas Vauclair will continue in his own style, and we love him for it. As Alberto Contador looks as though he's at the front, followed by Purito Rodriguez and the rest of the Katusha team. Basso still there pedaling away as well, heating up to be a very interesting race. 2 minutes 20 for Thomas Vauclair. Peloton on the way up to the Madonna del Ghisallo. You're watching the 107th Giro di Lombardia. Talked briefly before a couple of crashes occurred that it had this little bit of argy-bargy between Valverde and Rui Costa, and of course Joaquim Rodriguez as well. Certainly interesting to see any of the war wounds from the World Championships have been healed. Vincenzo Nibali was the man who was really up for it today. He said he's going to start in Argentina nice and early again next year. His wife's heavily pregnant, so he's not going to be going on holiday anywhere. But unfortunately, with the looks of the crash, he might not be able to go on holiday anyway. Looked to be limping quite badly. Let's hope that he can have a speedy recovery and enjoy time away from road biking. He says he wants to do some mountain biking in winter. I think it was a nod and a wink to his sponsors to send him a mountain bike over. That is Thomas Vauclair take some food. Maybe he wanted a different flavour.
It's one of these situations where goes on the attack without thinking. He does a lot of these things in races where just spur of the moment goes on the attack and just throws that away. Doesn't like that flavour and goes for another flavour. Obviously he hasn't planned this attack. It just happens. Sometimes this happens in bike racing where you feel good and he went on the attack. Unfortunately he's on his own, still a long way to go to the finish, and taking a bit of coke there, and then just afterwards getting a gel as we see Kunigo coming back, and he has been in the attacks already today. And they've got a very good team with...
they had a good team, I would have said.
Potential winners in there. Scarpone obviously not in the race anymore, but they've still got Diego Ulisse, who won Milano Torino during the week, so showing some good form. We haven't caught a sight of him in this main group. There's about 40 riders left. I think we can see possibly a pink jersey, but we'll wait till we get the camera confirmation of that.
Well, we've had sightings of Matteo Bono and Daniele Piertopolli so far today, but nothing as far as Ulisse's been concerned, the man who tasted that semi-classic victory this week on the slopes of Superga just outside of Turin. Scarpone retiring through a stomach bug, and of course Spanish champion Herrada a little further far behind. Broomwagon almost close to sweeping him up. Now then, MTN Quebecer riding for Africa, riding for their charity Quebecer, and Jacques Janse van Rensburg, the South African rider, doing his best to stay just ahead of the Broomwagon as well. It's that sort of race where there's a bit more temptation than in other races, like the Worlds was last week with that epic, horrible weather, and a lot of criticism for the British riders for getting off rather early in some people's eyes. I don't think the gripe was about not winning. I think a lot of people criticised the British team for getting off en masse early on into the race, and with these end-of-season races, the airport so close down the road in Malpensa, there's surely a big temptation to climb off when things aren't going your way.
Yeah, it's all about motivation, but you get paid to ride from the start of the season all the way through to the end of the season, so it's very important. Yeah, it was disappointing, the British team, but I'm going to just leave it up to the coaches and managers to sort that out themselves. Obviously, as a Brit, it was very disappointing, especially over the last 2 years when you've won the Tour de France with Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome, and now you had nobody in contention. Hats off to Italy. They really took the race to everybody. Okay, they failed in the end by not claiming a medal, and it was all about Costa, Rui Costa and Valverde.
Now, what's your take on
Rodriguez. That? Yeah, it's going to be obviously a difficult one. It has happened in the past with different teams, especially the Italian team, that haven't kind of gelled well together, and there has been a history in the past with Valverde. He wants to be obviously the number one, and
well, ask Oscar Freire from 12 months ago.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you've got 2 or 3 winners in that team. You have to gel them all together. When they ride for rival teams, it's very difficult. When it comes into the World Championships, to all ride as a team. Probably the best team that I've ridden in recent years was when Mark Cavendish won in Copenhagen, when the whole British team rode from start to finish. Okay, it was an easier circuit. That was a very difficult circuit to do that. We've seen Italy try to do this in so many occasions in the past in the World Championships and failed. And it was having 2 Spanish riders towards the front with Rodriguez and Valverde. You would have thought that they would have won, but Valverde made a huge mistake, and just looking at Nibali towards the end, allowing Rui Costa to go, thinking possibly of just getting that silver medal. I don't think for once Valverde thought that Rui Costa would get across to Rodriguez. He thought maybe the race is already won, but that was a huge mistake.
Philippe Gilbert, winner of this race 2 years in a row, a couple of years ago, and of course the second year that he did win it was at the end of that absolutely magnificent year, the peak of his career, and one that will no doubt probably not be matched. Now then, Katusha. Eyes on them throughout the day here.
This is Gusev here. I think he is being distanced now at the back of the this group Can't see, because he was distanced also on the Thurmano. That was Gusev, the rider, in the Katusha colours of red and white. But back to the front of this race, come towards 50 kilometres to go, and you get the gurning features of Tommy Vauclair. We see him so many times on the attack in a lot of the big races. He's certainly got a big engine. Maybe not the most popular of riders in the peloton, but for a lot of the Adorning fans, he is.
I was going to say, there's a massive difference, say a popularity swing, when you put two groups of people, the riders themselves, perhaps those involved in coaching as well, and close to the peloton. A lot of people don't like him. Certainly those sitting at home watching on the telly, most of them, I would argue, do like him. He's a character, and this is Alberto Contador. Now then, a look up the road might tell us he's been distanced, and that is the truth. 51.1 kilometres to go. Contador talking up today as a possibility for him, saying that it was the start, his first race of 2014. Well, dearie me, it looks like 2014 might be like 2013 for him.
I think he's just wishing to get 2013 out the way. You can see him now, he's really struggling. In the World Championships he was struggling as well. So by saying this is the first race of the next season, he's already got his eyes on next season. He just wants to get rid of the 2013. I think he just wants to get rid of this race as well, because he's certainly been really struggling with form. And obviously with the team as well, not really gelled well together. Oleg Tinkov has been obviously in the press, having a go at him, and you know, he has to come up as a leader. If you want to be paid the amount of money that Contador is being paid, then you have to deliver, and it's the same throughout any sport. But I believe that they said in the press that he was willing to take a pay cut to you know, obviously guarantee the future of the team.
Talking of pay cuts, what about that news this week? Tom de Gent, 80% pay cut to take the last spot on the Omega Pharma Quick-Step roster for next season. That's commitment to your job, isn't it? That is a desire to stay in the pro peloton.
Sometimes you have to do these things. As we see, Chris Anker Sorensen now being distanced at the back of this main peloton. But
it's like he's done a cleaning up job as well.
Yeah. But again, it's one of these things when you've only got so many spots, and you know, next year there'll be 18 World Tour teams. So what do you want to do? As Thomas de Gent, what is your choice? What's your opportunity? Do you drop down for more money to Continental Pro? Because I'm pretty sure that maybe there's 2 or 3 teams out at the second division team of Continental Pro might have given them the opportunity. Let's not forget, only last year, you know, brilliance in the Giro d'Italia.
He finished on the podium.
Yeah, but this year has not been fruitful for him, and unfortunately it's one of these things. And Vacansoleil now kind of dropping down to second division. So it says to me, taking a pay cut to keep him in World Tour is a chance you take. It's not all about money for a lot of riders. He wants to stay at the top level, and you know, hats off to a rider like Thomas de Gent. He will be good next year and possibly in the year after, but just not had the results this year, unfortunately for him.
Well, talking of Vacansoleil, and a nice little way for them to say goodbye to the pro peloton as they close their doors at the end of the year. Go onto their website and they've got a survey going. You can vote for the team's best moment in their 5 years of activity. We're off for a quick break. We'll see you in a minute. One by one we say goodbye to those who are dropped on the climb. Madonna del Ghisallo, the destination. 48.1 kilometers to go. Final destination, Lecco, via the Villa Vergano climb, 10 kilometers from the finish. That's where we expect the big moves. Or has the big move already been made? Just ask Thomas Vauclair. I know a lot of you will say, no, he never wins. He just does it for show. We shall see. Saxo Tinkoff also dropping off one by one. Matti Bressel struggling at the moment, fighting to get over this climb, maybe find a second win towards the end. Then another team have brought a strong squad for this one. Yeah, he has really struggled over the last few years. He was always one of these riders that showed really well in the World Championships. Obviously, he wasn't up there in Toscana this year, but again, the rider is on form for me in the World Championships was Joaquim Rodriguez, and that's why we have got 2 Katusha riders in the red and white at the front of this main group. The other rider that I think that is being looked after by Saxo Tinkoff, and that's Maika, who rode well during the week, and again they are putting their eggs in his basket today. Contador already dropped, as well as many other riders on this climb of the Ghisallo. We still have another climb to come
and that is towards the end. It finishes with about 10 kilometres to go to the finish, and that is where the race over the last 2 years has been won and lost. So we'll just have to wait to see if there is any reaction. We can also see, I think it's Cataldo, the Italian rider for Team Sky, also towards the front in the main group, as the gap goes up to 2 minutes and 34 seconds to Tommy Voeckler in front, as we see the support at the side of the road. It's the French colours, but they aren't French.
Dutch flag.
Yes.
It's misleading when they hang it out that way, when it seems that the colours seem to go across, rather like the French tricolour.
Yeah. French colours, but not French.
Voeckler out there in front then. You can see Gasparotto back in the group as well. You mentioned that Cataldo was there for Sky. Now, I wonder if he preempted some bad luck here, because it's Rigoberto Urán's last race with Sky today, and Cataldo's brought some champagne along. He's got it on ice in the bus. The problem is, Rigoberto Urán's nowhere to be seen up there. I think he's already back in the bus and drinking the champagne, isn't he?
Yeah, again, it's all about motivation. Urán had a nasty off in the World Championships only a week ago. So, again, he was heading for a very good finish and a very good end towards the season. But again, a difficult race for a lot of riders. This is slightly earlier in the year. It's only, a couple of weeks earlier from where it traditionally sat. But again, it's one of these races where if you've not got the motivation and you're struggling, there's absolutely no place to hide. But Tommy Voeckler is on his own in front. He has been on the attack over the last 10 kilometres. He has pushed an advantage of just over 2 minutes. The main group of about 40 riders hits this Gisalo climb, but as we can see, it's being whittled down all the time.
Cunego back by the cars, trying to regain contact.
Three-time winner of this race, so he knows this race like the back of his hand. But again, another rider that hasn't really produced the goods, and Lampre have been doing a few interesting signings as the gap goes up to almost 3 minutes for Tommy Voeckler.
Oh, the most interesting of those signings is the new world champion.
Yep.
Rui Costa. And they've already said that he will be the man to lead at the Tour de France next year. So that means if Scarponi stays, which we're still not sure about, he will go for the Giro d'Italia again, I'm sure. And it will be much the same, but they've been making some interesting signings, as you say. 2 minutes 55 now for Thomas Voeckler, and belief will start to grow. Certainly there's some big names, and there's a lot of firepower still back in the group.
You're talking about Rui Costa. I think it's the last world champion to win the Tour of Lombardy was, I think, 2006. Was it Bettini?
Was Bettini, yeah. The 7th in total, yeah. And he's become the 8th tonight.
If he wins, but it looks as if he's on good enough form. On the Sormano, he was up there towards the front, and Quintana and Valverde pushed on. They went away on the descent, so they were joined by Gasparotto, then Caruso from Katusha, and Santa Romita from BMC. The 5 riders came together pretty much at the bottom of the descent of the Sormano. Then it all came together. Just as it came together, the effervescent Tommy Voeckler went on the attack for Europcar. He has been on the attack for the last 10, almost 15 kilometres now, and he's pushed out an advantage of almost 3 minutes. As we get further up this climb, it starts to get a bit steeper, of about 9.5% towards the top. But again, a good effort by Tommy Voeckler, as we said before. Maybe not the most popular rider in the peloton, but certainly respected by a lot of the fans out there.
They love him. On the slopes up the way to Madonna del Ghisallo. Big cycling museum at the top. All of the winners of the Giro d'Italia in recent years have donated their pink jerseys to the museum. The bells toll as the riders go past. A great, beautiful look up to the church itself from Thomas Voeckler. That's destined to go down in preview videos and, of course, reviews of this great race in the future. A salute to its magic, a salute to its history. Now is he going to go on to be the man to add his name into the palmarès? We shall see. The Roll of Honour for 2013 needs a name next to it. And the man to throw his hat into the ring from a long way out is Thomas Voeckler. He goes over and past Madonna del Ghisallo. Now descending, the final climb is the one that will wait him 10 kilometres from the end.
It's another nation that were not represented that well towards the front of the race in the World Championships either, and that was France. So maybe Vogler is trying to have a good end towards the season, and again looking towards that World Tour license for next year. After Euskaltel, the deal with Alonso not happening, Vacansoleil disappearing, and it looks as if Europcar are trying to be that 18th World Tour team. So the door is open for them, because next year I thought maybe IAM would try and look at that by taking on Chavanel. But it doesn't seem to be happening. They haven't obviously applied, not that I know of recently. But it's going to be very interesting to see if Europcar get that final World Tour licence, because next year from 19 World Tour teams it will go down to 18 World Tour teams, and then there is a big fight for the wild card places for a lot of the Grand Tours next year.
1 minute 35 and counting, that's the gap. It was almost 3 minutes at the last GPS check. We're going to get the exact time when they cross the top of this Ghisallo climb.
Just looking as the lime green jersey, obviously Peter Sagan has climbed off earlier on today, but it does look as if Ivan Basso is in this front group for the Italian team.
Now, be careful on this descent. We've seen crashes galore on the way down from Muro di Sormano. A couple of crashes very early on during the day as well. We've seen Andy Schleck retire. We saw Peter Sagan unable to last the pace on the first main climb of the day. He's probably on the plane home already now, is Peter. 167 in there for Omega Pharma Quick Step is Peter Serry.
You just see on the far side there, you can see Dan Martin at 1:01, another previous podium finisher in the Lombardia before, and just at the back there also for AG2R. They have a couple of riders there. Posivivo did look good in the Sormano. Bettencourt still hanging in there, coming back to some form. But only about 25 riders now left at the front, in the front peloton, with Tommy Voeckler on his own at 2 minutes and 49 seconds.
2:49 it is then, as they cross the chapel that is dedicated to the sport of cycling. The sport, the drama, the history, just about everything. This is a special place, and if you're ever in the area, get on your bike, have a ride up, and just take a look at all the history of this race, the Giro d'Italia. This is really one of the heartlands of cycling. Mythical place, a magical race, and there are 42.7 kilometres that remain.
You can just see Visconti there at the back on the left hand side. He has been on the deck already in this race, but he wants it so much. At the start of this race he was an outsider at 33-1, so he stands a very good chance of doing well in this race. I would think that over the Ghisallo now that someone like Visconti would try and go in front, try and chase Voeckler down, and allow the world champion of Rui Costa, Valverde and Quintana just to possibly try and sit back. But this man is setting the race alight. 2.5 minutes he has on that group just going over the top of the Ghisallo, and Tommy Voeckler has just the road in front of him. One more climb and then it will be in towards the finish, but this climb towards the end is very, very steep, and again after 242 kilometres by the finish, but they'll hit it at about 230 kilometres, so very difficult indeed. We see Visconti in the ripped jersey and on his elbow. A few riders have been off today, but a lot of the riders have climbed off. Visconti obviously wants to try and do well in this race today.
Carlos Betancourt running for AG2R Mondial. Just looking back in the cars. Has enjoyed riding in Italy himself this year. This is a man who enjoyed a great Giro d'Italia as well, but as Brian said, he's been on the deck today. Must be horrible when it's cold, wet and rainy. That's not Valerio Agnoli, by the way. And it's certainly not Astana team. It's Movistar, it's Gio Visconti, and a man, as you said, who's at fairly generous odds for this race, given the fact that he could well be dangerous.
Yeah, he's in a strong Movistar team. They have got numbers. Quintana, Valverde, Rui Costa. Visconti is one of the outsiders that before, if you can remember last year's race when Rui Costa was on the attack before we hit the final climb, and I was thinking with a strong Movistar team that sort of small group attacking to go away after the Ghisallo there's an opportunity that Visconti could take the pressure off the rest of them. And if he gets on, he's the sort of rider, if he gets on to that final climb, he could possibly stay away to the finish, thinking that maybe Nibali and Rodriguez would look at each other. But Rodriguez has got the green light now. I think he is still the odds-on favourite for this race now that Nibali has crashed out.
The back wheel of Thomas Vauclair's bike still out in front. This is Yuri Trofimov, despite the fact that our graphics department seemed to think that it was Joaquim Rodriguez. And it's not Joaquim Rodriguez still. I seem to have a little problem with their screen. They might want to give it a wipe down, a dust or something, because we had Gio Visconti named as something else 2 minutes ago. And Purito Rodriguez is a little thinner set than that, let's say. Trofimov as well, with the capes hanging out the back pocket. 3 minutes and 11. Thank you very much, Yuri Trofimov. Russian rider for Katusha. Gap has grown again, Brian.
Yeah, 3 minutes and 11 seconds now, inside 40 kilometres to go, and Tommy Vauclair looks as if he's looking good for this moment in time. Obviously, he got over the Sermano just at tail end of the front group. He was kind of slightly distanced, but he came back on the descent. And when the whole race came back together, he went on the attack, maybe thinking of taking a group with him, because when we came off the Sermano, the Gisalo is up next, and a good time to go on the attack to try and take some riders with him, but unfortunately nobody went with him, and he finds himself alone. Very difficult to do the last 50 kilometres on your own, but Tommy Vauclair really concentrated in trying to do that. Trofimov now makes it back to this main peloton of about 30 odd riders, and I would think that he would have to go straight to the front. You can just see one of the other Katusha riders at the back, and I think that might be Danny Marino. So they'll have to call in their troops to try and bring this gap down to a manageable distance. But it's going to be very difficult for Vauclair on his own. No place to hide in front, with still one steep climb to come towards the finish.
Vauclair pulling faces. They're always worth a watch as well. As I said, that image of him passing the small chapel at the top of Gisalo, I'm sure will be used in promo videos and previews and all sorts of dramatic montages for years to come. It was absolutely beautiful. He really does know his history. He salutes it, whatever you think of him as a face puller, a bike rider, whatever. It was absolutely magnificent to see, and I'm sure that we'll see those images again and again and again. And every year they go past this chapel, it seems that roads are wet through. You joked in the ad break there, they should rename this race to the one of the wet roads.
Yeah, I think every race in Scotland should be called that as well. But yeah, it's traditionally known as the race of the fallen leaves. And again, it's just moved slightly towards the World Championships. I think a lot of them were thinking that you ride the Worlds and then go to Lombardy, which has produced very good winners in the past. But not a very good day for this man here, Manuel Morini. But just looking at the composites of this group, about 30-35 riders. We know that we have some very good riders from Movistar, and Katusha also have numbers, but it seems to be Katusha that wants to ride down Tommy Vauclair more than Valverde's team of Movistar. So Movistar not doing anything whatsoever, and they have some cards to play. They've got Quintana, Visconti, obviously he's been on the deck, but I think he'll be kind of used up towards the end if needed. But they've got the world champion Rui Costa. What sort of week has he had? Because when you become a world champion, you have to do some of your the PR stuff. So I'm not too sure. He looked okay on the Sermano, the steepest and the hardest climb here in Lombardy. Valverde, we really don't know what he's thinking at all, because he's made so many mistakes, especially in the World Championships. So again, still a long way to go. Dan Martin also in this front group, another rider that could possibly try and win by launching an attack in the final climb. But I guarantee this man here, Cunego, as he gets a turbo bottle, will not be adding a fourth win in Lombardy this year.
That was an extremely sticky bottle there. Must have been coated in sugar.
Yeah, it's not a sticky one, it was a turbo one.
Vauclair with 35.4 kilometres to go. Last climb has decided the race in both of the 2 years it's been put into the parcours so far. Everything points towards the Villa Vergano. All the main favourites talked about it, but we've got to remember that half of the main favourites have either crashed, DNF for other reasons. We had a did not start as well, unfortunately for Omega Pharma Quickstep. Mikhail Kwiatkowski was taken ill, deemed not fit enough to start the race this morning, so we were one down before we even started. And it's such a shame really in that aspect, because it could have almost been, and still could be on the final climbs, a sort of World Championship Chapter 2, because of all the great climbers and one-day riders that came to this race and came in form, having worked to peak for last week's race.
Yeah, a lot of the riders that were up there towards the end of the World Championships will have pretty much the good form in Lombardy. Whether they're totally motivated with the weather, I'm not too sure, but again, Katusha having two riders towards the back there, Trofimov and Danny Marino with the two riders towards the back again. Looking towards the front, they have got one rider towards the front. Then you have, I think, Saxo Tinkoff. It could be, I think, from this height, possibly the world champion sitting there in third place at Rui Costa. But again, two riders riding down Tommy Vauclair. I'm pretty sure that they'll need some more manpower. But you can see the peloton all in one line. They know that the pace is up. You have to respect Tommy Vauclair because he has pulled off some great performances in the past. You can just see this main group of about 30-35 riders all in one line, which shows that the pace is up.
Pace is up. And Thomas Vauclair is still in the lead. 34 k's to go. No food left. There it is.
I think they're concentrating. There was just something in the rear derailleur there. Sometimes,
arm warmer, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, sometimes something jumps out of the pocket. You go in to get some food and you forget sometimes your arm warmers are in there. Arm warmer comes out into the back wheel of the derailleur. We've seen this happen in Tommy Vauclair, and when a bottle jumped out and stuck between the wheel and his frame, and he actually fell off badly, and I think it was the Tour of Belgium. So again, there are some hazards on the roads as Trofimov, I think he's been sent back to the team car now to have a wee word. So he's not having the best of times at the moment, and again, with race radios and World Tour events, they'll be in complete control. So we see the main peloton, probably about 35, maybe just over riders and now left, chasing down Tommy Vauclair. But just interesting to see who is actually doing the chasing at the front, because it does look as if it's probably 2 or 3 teams, but no real numbers been put up. So with 33 kilometres to go, still have one rider in front. That's the Frenchman riding on a Colnago Italian bike, and again, that will give him some support here in Lombardy.
Certainly will. There's been a few visits to bike shops this week. Chris Froome was down at Pinarello's place, getting some measurements taken, doing a bit of PR as well. He was due to start this race, but has made a late decision not to do. That left Sky with just a 6-man team for this, as Damiano Cunego still struggles away out the back. Not his day, but he is fighting on. Just while we attempt to get confirmation of those riding on the front, a quick word of those who are leaving. As I quickly mentioned, Marco Pinotti, Mr. Professor, leaving the pro saddle. Today, his last Italian race. He'll continue to work in cycling for his BMC racing team, as Philippe Gilbert is at the back there in the red and black of BMC. There's Derek Belamakers, who's decided to end his career very early to concentrate on his studies. Dave Zabriskie as well. He's confirmed today that it's his final day of racing.
I'm just looking to see the rider from Vacansoleil is waving at the moment. That does look to me as if that's Juan Antonio Flecha, and it was reported that
he climbed off. Yeah, very, very early on in the day. I thought it was a bit surprising, but again, perhaps just symptomatic of the state of the season that we were in. This is the sort of racing that he really does love.
Well, we had the Piccolo Lombardi yesterday, and that was one. Piccolo Lombardi is for the young riders. That was yesterday, and it was David Vaiella of Team Kolpak that won that in 3 hours and 53 minutes and 53 seconds. So good result from David Viella, and I think he will be joining a World Tour team next year.
For Claire, as we get these wonderful images overlooking Lago Lario, more commonly known as Lake Como in the English-speaking world.
Just looking at the results in the week of the Milano-Torino race, and gives an indication. Elise won that from Rafael Maika, and I know that a friend of mine in Scotland, Stephen McGinty, has got £5 on him. I think he got them about 100 to 1. Certainly Saxo Tinkoff are looking after him today. He looks in very good form. He rode towards the front in the Sormano, and he has looked really impressive over the last week or so, and looked impressive today.
Well, talking of tipsters, how are you feeling at home? We'd like to hear from you. At Rob Hatch TV or at Bry Smithy on Twitter. Hashtag your tweets, Eurosport Cycling, please. And let's hear who you think might win it. Getting towards that time now, make a selection, take a guess. There's about 30 or so riders who could make the win. Who's going to do it?
Well, looking at the history, when you look back, it's always 1 and 2s, and Bettini, Gilbert, Cunego. I think for me, Rodriguez is still looking very good, just sitting in the main group. And again, for me, last year, when we had obviously bad pictures in the run in towards the finish, and when Rodriguez emerged, he won that race. He was the world's #1 at that period of time. So again, Rodriguez is the favourite. Now Nibali is not in the race anymore. Katusha have to try and contain, with 30 kilometres to go, the attack of Tommy Voeckler. But again, just looking at the results of Milano-Torino during the week, Tommy Voeckler finished in 8th place. He's only 15 seconds down. But the riders that were up there, Danny Marino was 3rd, Pozzovivo was up there in 4th, Contador, he's been dropped already. Pelazzotti, Dan Martin is up there in 11th place. So still a long way to go in this race before we see who the winner will likely to be, as Tommy Voeckler comes down onto the lakeside.
Last Frenchman to win this race, 1997, Laurent Jalabert. 11 French winners of this race in previous history. 67 from Italy as Thomas Voeckler just takes that one nice and calmly.
He just kind of straightened up the bike because obviously the blue and the white paint, he didn't want to hit it at any angle, so he just kind of alters his body to go over it in as a much upright position as possible.
Got the view on the left. Don't call it the Bel Paese for nothing. 2 minutes 53. The gap has gone down slightly. Of course, immediately went out and got 2 minutes fairly quickly. But he's since been able to extend that lead beyond 3. Just dipped below that mark again. And as we saw a moment ago, the peloton were in fact strung out. There was hard work being done, so the fruits of that are being seen. But again, on these up and down sections, it's not going to be easy.
No, not at all, especially when you're on your own. Just quite unfortunate for Voeckler that nobody went with them. And it just goes to show you that it was kind of spur of the moment. Everybody came off the Sormano, and the hardest climb of this year's Lombardy. And they decided to regroup. Excellent place to attack, but nobody else thought the same.
Pantani vive ancora. Pantani's still alive. The memory of the man that lives long and lives on. He still to this day is the man that keeps cycling tradition, cycling tifoseria, or supportership, if you like, alive in this part of the world. Whatever your ideas of him, and I know because of his checkered past, a lot of people have preconceived ideas, which is fine. It's just so important, if you're looking at Italian cycling culture, to know how important the man is. He is everywhere when you see the ride, and of course on graffiti as they come around the corner, and we've seen it twice thanks to our cameras. Now then, another gel and a little push along.
all these things count, and again, he's taking on as much as possible, not even taking it on. He actually just holds on to the car, or holds on to what he was given, and he throws it away immediately. Just looking at the front of the peloton and now, and we can see the rider from Katusha coming around the bend, Saxo Tinkoff, and the world champion also towards the front. And I think for me, the world champion Rui Costa is being used to ride Tommy Voeckler down. So now Tommy Voeckler is on the same stretch of road as the peloton just coming along the leg sides. This gap will start to come down. It has to come down. You will not want to give Tommy Voeckler a minute coming into this final climb.
We're talking about the last French winner, Laurent Jalabert, to win this race in 1997. Thanks to Irish Peloton on Twitter, by the way, Cillian Kelly, for pointing out that Jalabert's victory in 1997 at this race was the last French win in any of the Monument Classics. So that, indeed, will be a very, very special piece of riding if he could pull it off today. Just under 27 kilometres to go. Remains a big ask. But of course there needs to be organisation, there needs to be concerted effort, and of course there needs to be that M word, that big bit of motivation that we see might be lacking in a few riders towards the end.
Well, you can just see that you know, now the world champion Rui Costa, the head of this main group, now all in white with the world championship bands, and they are thinking of possibly two riders, Valverde and Quintana, maybe a wee bit of a kind of repayment, but the world champion is being riding down Voeckler at the front. I mean, you get three riders, because we did notice that Saxo Tinkoff were involved with the chase, also Katusha. It means that this man will find it very difficult to stay in front, and most of the people on Twitter now probably thinking of Joaquim Rodriguez Pareto for the win here at the finishing line.
Pareto did it last year. Can he do it again? That would be an interesting pattern after Olivier Zaug's win. We had 2 years previous of Philippe Gilbert taking the honours. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That gap really isn't budging too much. Ivan Santaromita in there in the Italian national jersey as well. There's Emanuele Sella. Wow. Hello, cycling of the past, right at the back of the peloton.
Yeah, he's kind of hanging on, but he's still there, just in front in Team Sky's Cataldo. I think the only Sky rider, I think, in this front group. The rider at the front of this group was Vicioso, and for Katusha. So Vicioso riding for his man Pareto Rodriguez. Danny Marino just sitting in this group also. Tommy Voeckler just putting his hands up, and he'll be asking for gels and bottles pretty much all the way in towards the finish. Pretty sure that he'll be throwing a lot of the stuff away at the side of the Italian roadside, but any little bit of help will help him, because he has been out for the last kind of 25 kilometres, so he just takes that bit of a gel or a bar. I think by this time most of the riders have taken their solid foods, so it's all about gels, and you can just see him taking it now. The car coming up constantly, giving him as much support as he can. As we said just earlier, that perfect place to attack, but no one else thought of going with him at that time. So Voeckler in front. This gap will start to come down, because there's still a lot of riders in this main peloton, about 30-35 riders.
Interesting you mention fueling and food there, Brian. I know we ask these sorts of things a lot and try to give the viewers at home the best insight into how riders prepare, how they go on about refueling the bodies throughout the race. But you've ridden on these roads, you lived and trained in Como for quite a while. This particular race with all its ups and downs, we'll get onto that in a minute, because there's been a bit of a spill. One of the IAM riders down. Oh, and yet again, awful look today for Marcel Wies. Third time he's been down.
Is that Betancourt as well?
And it looks as though it is Carlos Betancourt of Colombia Najid, as seemed to be his fairly distinctive body shape.
It's just tiredness at the end of the day when it comes down to it. Just looking to see it's not
actually Pozzovivo.
Yeah, Pozzovivo, not Betancourt. So again, that's what happens. Kunikov comes past. Just one of these things that a wee bit of tiredness, and that's what happened. It looked as if it was Pozzovivo just sliding out. He was one of the first riders to come down. A reaction in the back of this peloton, and Marcel Wies comes down. A lot of tired bodies at this moment. The back, and all it needs is to overcook one of these corners, go into it too fast, maybe overlapping the wheel, and Pozzovivo comes down. And again, he's another rider that will be important for AG2R when it comes to, or even the Italians to win their own classic today, because Pozzovivo showing some good form during the week in Milano-Torino, and again an outsider for a win here in Lecco.
24 k's to go. Now then, let's get on to that little topic about refueling and eating and drinking. You've ridden around these roads. You lived and trained in Como for quite a while when you were with Motorola, I think it was, back in the 90s. Is this race a little more difficult than the rest to try and fuel your body for? Because, again, it's a one-day classic. You're not racing either side of it, so you're not into a rhythm like you'll be on a Grand Tour. There's ups and downs, there's bad weathers, there's moments that you really need to be in the front group towards the end, quite a lot.
The thing about this race is it's refueling. It's got kind of 5 climbs on it, but if you're be given team orders, sometimes you can forget. A lot of the times in this race, it's a descent. It's very difficult to eat in the descent. So, and obviously climbing up, you go up the likes of the Sormano, and you're climbing that for what, maybe about 20 minutes, maybe more than that, and then you come down the descent again, the descent 10-15 minutes. So all of a sudden you've not had a chance to eat, because very difficult to eat uphill, and even more difficult to eat going downhill. So again, sometimes the riders have to be reminded about eating, very important, and especially in a race of this length of 242 kilometres.
Back into the province of Lecco, out of the latest tunnel. Plenty of them down here. We've got the Melgonian Pare. The cliffs drop into the lake. Gap is down slightly now, and perhaps he's starting to tire a little. That in addition to perhaps harder work going on behind. 2 minutes and 24 seconds at the last count. And as you can see, there's Lecco in the distance. And it's not really nice weather in it. It is absolutely lashing it down with rain. 22.5 k's to go. And we're starting to get quite a few similarities to last year again.
Yeah, last year we had thunderstorms, and obviously we had difficulty in bringing the pictures. But again, drizzle. It's not too cold. You can just see Tommy Voeckler in short arms. Most of the riders are at about 17, 18 degrees here at the finish in Lecco. But again, it's that constant drizzle. You know, some dry roads, some kind of wet and patches and things like that. Very difficult racing conditions to race in. But I tell you what, this bunch will have to get their act together. Katusha and Movistar might have to put another rider towards the front to try and bring this man back, because we know what he's capable of. Still a healthy advantage, 2 minutes and 25 seconds. But I think there's still enough firepower left in the peloton behind to bring this man back.
Still he goes, still he works, still he pulls faces. Thomas Voeckler giving it his all for Europe Cup.
Tell you what, he's going to have a lot of Italy shouting at the screens. I know he's a French rider, but he does ride an Italian bike, a Colnago, so a lot of support in this country as we see the peloton behind coming through the tunnel.
Well, it's fantasia, as they call it, as well. It's magic. This is the sort of riding they love. And part of the reason, I'll refer back to the Pantani comment around 10 minutes ago. That's why they love cycling in this part of the world. It's the type of cycling they love. They don't want to ride on watts and power meters. They want to see attacks. They want to see invention, creativity and drama. And that's what they're seeing here with Thomas Voeckler. Whether he pulls it off or not is another matter, but it is wonderful to watch. Let's just hope that we can see a lot of it, because that weather is getting a little worse. It's not stopping people on the side of the roads. Brilliant to see. Again, teeth gritted. Voeckler accelerates out the roundabout and attempts to keep his gap as big as possible.
You can just see he's starting to tire. He's out the saddle, especially when he comes through that roundabout. He's on the flat, his head's rocking, but again, these are telltale signs in a normal rider, but Voeckler is not a normal rider. He'll go, give 100%. Guarantee if you've got Tommy Voeckler in the team, he'll give 100%. And he's always super motivated. And I just have pictures of him in the Tour de France where he was hanging on to that yellow jersey all the years ago, and everybody thought he was dropped, and then he'd come back and using every muscle in his body. But he's puffing and blowing a bit. I think he's starting to feel the effects of the last 20 odd kilometres of being in the front on his own.
Hello at home. They'll be shown all around the world. Glad those roads are on open. Not a great place to stand, but anywhere to watch this bike race. Bit of shelter as well. I can tell you that Lecco is full of people, as it always is for this race. Como hosting the finish. They do tend to move the finish around every few years here. Of course, we started from Bergamo today, which had never been the start of the race. It had seen a few famous finishes. But Lecco is a perfect setting for it, and with this brilliant climb of Villa Vergano just before, it really sets it up.
That's that same roundabout, so I suspect this time gap is not anywhere near 2.5 minutes. It looks to be as if it's probably just over a minute, because that was the same point, that roundabout where Tommy Voeckler came through. So this race a lot closer, and I think Saxo Tinkoff still got that man at the front. The world champion is still sitting in second place. I think this is Michael Rogers, the Aussie, and the Saxo Tinkoff team. Ridden well today, rode well up the Sormano, riding at the front with Nicholas Roach. Nicholas Roach now dropped. The world champion Rui Costa. Then you have two riders from AG2R. I think that's Sherrill that's behind the world champion, and Betancourt. Betancourt getting stronger and stronger. He had a terrific Giro d'Italia, but again, there's still a lot of riders just sitting on the wheels and waiting for this final climb.
Well, I hope he's listening to his race radio today, that's all I can say, because he had one of those embarrassing moments in the Giro, I think, as well, when he didn't quite know what was going on, because the earphone was out by the side of his jersey when it should have been plugged into his ear.
Was it when he forgot that Belkov was in front?
That's the one. Thought he won. We've seen a few of those this year, comedy moments. But we want one another today.
Philip Gilbert, the number 54, Greg Van Avermaet, I think it's the rider behind him, and number 57. So both riders from BMC in towards the front, with Santa Marita right next to him in the Italian Champions jersey. One of the pink jerseys moving up, that would be the second rider in the pink jersey on the left hand side, would be, I would think, Ulisse.
Ivan Basso still right at the front as well, and while we've been on air, it sounds as though there's finally been an agreement with Mr. Tinkoff and Cannondale, and I tell you what, that's going to be an interesting kit next year, the yellow and the green together. Leclerc looking around, waiting and waiting whilst he continues to pedal. 8.6 Ks more or less from the start of this final climb. We'll just have a think about what is coming up, because it's going to jump on us fairly quickly. Last climb of the day, it is of course the Villa Vergano. It's actually called, the climb itself is called the Salita, which is climb in Italian, di Ello. Lasts 3.2 kilometers. You go up 243 meters, average gradient of 7.4, and there's a maximum of 15% in there. And after 230 kilometers, that's got to hurt.
Waiting for the next picture, please. Waiting for the live pictures.
Thomas Voeckler of France, and Europe car still leads with 18.1 kilometers to go of the 107th Tour of Lombardy, the Giro di Lombardia. The next climb, the final climb, up to Villa Vergano, the Salita di Ello as it's named, goes up from Oggiorno. Easy enough, relatively easy in cycling terms, and the 15% gradient comes well within the last 500 to 1 kilometre or so. So it's not easy at all. You've got to start well, but more importantly, Brian, you've got to finish it well to get over the top as well.
Yeah, and you still have to have some legs to go on the descent and take it all the way in towards the finish. Tommy Voeckler still in front, one of his Europe car riders just sitting in third place, trying to just hold the wheels, but again, 1 minute 22 as expected. This gap coming down very, very quickly now. Michael Rogers is getting help at the front by Katusha rider Caruso. You can just see the rider from Eurocar just sitting in third place. So two riders trying to bring back Tommy Voeckler, and we suspected that the body mannerisms of Voeckler showing a bit of stress with the effort he's actually put in, and the gap of 2 minutes and 25. But we came off that kind of tricky descent just after where we saw Pozzovivo crash. The gap then was 2:25. So now with 1 minute 17 down, with just about 17 kilometers to go. So the winner for me is going to come from the main group behind of about 30-35. But who's going to be? There's still a lot of riders that we haven't really seen.
Well, I want to ask you about Ivan Basso. He lives fairly close. He lives in Varese, just down the road where, if you've been to Milan, you may have landed at the Malpensa airport, just down the road from that. It's close to Lake Como, it's close to these climbs. He trains on them almost every day. He's not had a great year. He had his horrible saddle sores that kept him out of the Giro d'Italia. He came back, of course, and rode in the Vuelta, was looking great and had to abandon there. That put pay to his World Championship prospects as well. He talked himself up coming to this race today. He said he felt good as well. Vauclair now losing time, Bassa going strong in the bunch, but of course Bassa with this quite short climb still to come. Is it his sort of climb? Because he's a man who likes the long climbs, likes to go at his pace, doesn't get out the saddle, and any change in gradient and change in pace is usually pretty horrible for him.
The riders that are going to excel in this final climb, that are in this front group, we're already kind of talked about them. As Vauclair again, he's very animated towards the front. He's getting tired. He's just wanting to know what way to go. He's trying to think. He's coming up towards a road junction and wants to try the shortest way. You are looking at, by the things of Saxo, Tinkoff towards the front. Maika would be a very good rider in this type of climb. You've got Valverde, Quintana have shown even in his form in the Tour of Britain. You can't discount Dan Martin as well. Joaquim Rodriguez, also Danny Moreno, his teammate. I was going to say Pozzovivo, but obviously he's crashed out now. But so many riders. You just see the rider at front, Michael Rogers. Caruso is the rider from Katusha, second place there in the red and the white. Cyril Gautier for Europcar. Visconti up towards the front, so you can just see these crash. A victim of a crash earlier on today for Movistar, sitting in the fourth place. Ivan Basso up there. You can't really discount Van Avermaet and Gilbert, but again, they have been kind of hanging on. They have been distancing the last two climbs, but they're still there. And although this climb is about 3 kilometres long,
just over 3 kilometres long, the hardest part within sort of the last kilometre.
You just see Cherel just bringing up. Is that Betancourt or Pozzovivo made it back to the front of this race? We'll just kind of have to wait and see. Very difficult to pick these riders out. But Europcar ridden well. You can just see Cyril Gautier, the rider, in their picture now for Europcar.
Looks as though he's been had face pulling lessons off Tommy as well.
Well, he's repaid his dues to his teammate Valverde. His job is done. The world champion from last week. He has been riding at the front to bring back Tommy Vauclair, and just look at the gap now as he started at almost 3 minutes. So Rui Costa now brings it back to 1:01 and job over for him.
I know quite a few of my friends in Spain are going to be absolutely furious about that. Repaying work? There shouldn't have been any work done the other week, surely. Rui Costa though, world champion. I'm not sure about those white shorts, on a side note.
Well, they've stayed fairly white today, looking at it.
He's been pretty lucky. It's a typical day where there are going to be all sorts of colours but white at the end of it. But he's finished, he's done, and he's done a great job today. Rainbow jersey, that is probably the last of the main riding that we'll see him do in Movistar colours.
Well, you don't like to be dropped as the world champion. You want to kind of fight and stay in there. But again, they have used up Rui Costa rather than Visconti. Visconti being an Italian rider, you would think with the riders that have got in there with Visconti, Valverde and Quintana, so they've decided to, which is a bit, respectful for Visconti being an Italian rider, because he could have been easily used. But now we see the riders from IAM come towards the front.
Johan Chop. Now that is an interesting name. He can climb, he can descend, he can do just about everything. Remember Cima Coppi, Giro d'Italia, I think it was 2010 when he was up against Gibo Simoni. Gibo was out there to get the glory in his last ever Giro d'Italia. He wanted the Cima Coppi. Chop was cruel enough to take it away from him right at the top. He is a man who can win epic bike days, and he might be a man to have a go here. In the meantime, this is still our leader, and Thomas Vauclair with blood on his chin there. I wonder if he's been down while we haven't been looking, or is that from the earlier fall that we saw briefly?
I'm not too sure where it's from. Maybe something's come up from the road or something that we never caught that. But again, not too much of a battle. We can see 3 riders there from Lampre in the pink and the blue. Trofimov, it's all over for him. He's done his work for today. Michael Rogers also we've seen drifting off the back. A lot of these riders have ridden well for their team today. It's up to their team leaders now to finish it off. Coming around this roundabout again with 30 odd riders in this peloton. Tommy Vauclair only 41 seconds in front.
Again, I saw a few people questioning the fact that we labelled Rui Costa as having a really good race today. He's been doing work for a team, and he's done his job. He brought that. He really did help bring that gap back together.
Nobody like he did, and he probably chose to do that after becoming world champion. Sometimes you've got your kind of PR and press to do, and maybe come into this race because you don't lose your form in a week. So it's been very difficult for him, but it's all coming back together thanks to his help.
Gio Visconti, the latest to take up the mantle of the work on the front. So you've got to think that it's all in for Valverde.
It looks very much like that, but Quintana also of the Sermano. It was Valverde and Quintana that were doing the damage on the descent more than the ascent. So again, Visconti comes towards the front to again bring back this man in front, who's been in front since about the just inside the last 50 kilometres. He went on the attack, really suffer now. 34 seconds back to the Visconti-led peloton. Basso sitting there in third place. Chirel number 15 for AG2R. So as we said earlier, all over for Saxo Tinkov's Michael Rogers.
End of the season for Mick Rogers. Great bit of work at the front from him to close the gap as well. Now then, Française des Jeux, Thibaut Pinot. Where have you been?
He's been ducking and diving, and that's what we've mentioned. There's some good riders in here that we haven't really mentioned at all. So they've been hiding away in this main peloton. So we could see some surprises, but it's going to be very difficult because Movistar still have Quintana and Valverde in this very depleted peloton now. I think probably under 30 riders left at the front.
Waiting for Lissi to show his colours as well. In the meantime, Vauclair will fight on towards the death, as I'm sure that his principles and his morals will only allow him to do. Meanwhile, the spectator gets the photo he's been waiting for all day. Just 30 seconds, in fact, it's just less than 30 seconds now as the pace continues to be up behind. Gio Visconti on the front. Couple of wheels back, we have an Agir Desert rider, Mikel Charel. Remember, they still have Pozzo Vivo and Betancourt in there. And here we go then. Salita di Ello starting. Goes up 500 metres. That is the total climb, 243 metres, the proper stat below. And again, it's just over 3 kilometres long. And after that, it's descent into Lecco itself.
Yeah, and you see Quintana, he's actually looking after Valverde on the left-hand side, and Juan Antonio Fleischer comes up to join him just on the left-hand side. Pinot is towards the front, but it's Visconti from the Europcar rider Cyril Gauthier. Again, some riders. Just noticed that one of the blue NetApp Enduro riders is towards the back of this main group. I can only think that would be Paul Voss, who rode well in Milano Torino earlier on. But this man here is tried to win this race today. 27 seconds now, all over. We are on this final climb. It tops off with about 10 kilometres to go, then a tricky descent. But he'll look around and he'll see a group of about almost 30 riders behind him.
Pulls out his earphones, doesn't want to hear any more from the director sportif behind him. And in the meantime, it's time to go to work for BMC. Yes, on the pedals as well is Ivan Basso. Just in front of him is Chahel. On the left-hand side, we have Nairo Quintana from Movistar.
Well, I said don't discount Gilbert today. OK, he's been dropped in distance in the Thormano and Gisalo, but Van Avermaet has now come towards the front, and they want to control things. And I tell you what, Gilbert is one of these riders that if he can get over this climb within a shout, then he is a very, he'll be very good bet for the finish. But again, it's hard to see past Movistar now. But Van Avermaet has been surpassed by one of the riders from AG2R now. As more riders get dropped, Visconti is now being dropped. Again, a lot of riders looking at each other. No attack yet, still a long way to go. Dan Martin on the left-hand side in the blue come towards the front. So interesting times here as we get towards the 11 kilometre to go mark.
On our way up to Villa Vergano. It is almost over for Thomas Vauclair. Whatever you're doing, drop it, salute the man. He's provided the afternoon's entertainment, as he does for many a day during the cycling season. Today is the last day of the big races. He knows it's done. He's been knowing it was done for the last couple of kilometres or so, and I think he will gracefully now accept his fate.
Pozzovivo is back now in this group. Chirel is leading. I just noticed that Betancourt is being dropped at the back for AG2R, so Pozzovivo is definitely there. Chirel leads for AG2R, Le Mondial, and just at the behind him you've got Quintana and Valverde. The rider in the Team NetApp Enduro colours is in fact Baros Huzarski, the rider who rode tremendously well with Barta in the World Championship. So as we pick out the riders towards the front of this main route, Chirel leads from Quintana, Valverde, Dan Martin up there with Basso on the left hand side in the green, Maika sitting in fifth, Joaquin Rodriguez is sitting behind him in the Katusha colours of red and white. Pozzovivo, Thibaut Pinot, and then I think it's Gasparotto. So a lot of the climbing talent now moving up towards the front of this peloton.
Emanuele Sella is there as well. Gilbert and Van Avermaet just drifting back. Argos rider there, by the way, is the number 203, Tom Dumoulin, promising Dutch rider. So Euskaltel Euskadi in one of their final appearances. Gorka Berdugo is their final representative.
I think Ben Hermans is the only representative from Radio Shack. So again, Chirel leading from Quintana, Valverde, Dan Martin and Basso, Maika, Van Avermaet, Peter Seri also up towards the front.
Darwin Atapuma from Colombia in there. It is his compatriot, though, that's doing a heck of a lot of work on the front.
Robert Hissink in the left-hand side for Belkin in the kind of apple green and black. Pinot moves up in the left-hand side also for Français de Dieu in the blue. So Quintana takes it up. Pinot just to his left, to his right is Basso. Just behind him is Gilbert.
And here goes Thibaut Pinot. Off on the pedals, attempting to try and get away. He's chased down quickly by Betancourt. We're coming into the hardest part of the climb now. We have just over a kilometre to go to the top.
Pozzovivo is the rider in second place. Betancourt has been dropped. So Pozzovivo was the rider that reacted the quickest there. So Pinot just goes on the attack. You can see Pozzovivo go and chase him down. Basso still reacting very well, sitting in third place there. But again, is the two dark blue with the green M of Quintana and Valverde just lurking.
Well, you can tell how good form Basso is in. He's up off the pedals. We rarely see that from him. Now look at Quintana go. Quintana chasing down Pozzovivo. Basso, though, doing a great job so far. Valverde now comes close towards the front as well. He's still got the arm warmers on for Movistar.
I tell you what, Rodriguez is sitting about 15th, 16th place at the moment. It's Danny Marino, it's up towards the front for Katusha. So Pozzovivo at the front, Basso now losing losing ground, and then you've got Quintana moves to the side, but you just see up towards the front now is on the wheel of Valverde is Perito Rodriguez. Just behind him you've got Maika and Dan and Martin. Great to see Omega Pharma Quickstep up there, Peter Serret, but it looks as if Thibaut Pinot is starting to struggle.
Pozzovivo, as Basso loses a bit of contact. Coming past him is the Irishman Dan Martin. Just in front is Valverde with Joaquim Rodriguez just in front of that. Just over half a kilometre to go until they're designed to top this climb, according to the route book. This is where it gets harder.
You just see Quintana hanging on. He's already made good efforts today. In fact, just as I say that, he is now dropped. Tom Dumoulin on the right-hand side dropped. Philippe Gilbert now dropped Santa Marita. So the composition of the group in front, Pozzovivo at the front in the brown shorts for AG2R. Perito Rodriguez in the Katusha colours of red and white. Behind Movistar have got Valverde, Dan Martin in the blue, but it's Joaquim Rodriguez that decides where he did last year when he went on to win, and that's why he wears number 1 on his back, deciding to put the pressure on as Rafa Maika tries to respond.
Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver of Spain and Catalonia, off through the centre of the crowds, taking off again and looking absolutely wonderful. Onto the maximum 15% gradient now, and very, very close to the top. Not many are able to follow. The only man who attempted to do so was Pozzovivo.
Well, this is what he did last year in the thunderstorms, and only Maika, Valverde, Dan Martin, Pozzovivo and Basso now left. So 5 riders are chasing this man down. Number 1 from last year, we did say that this is normally 1 and 2s from Bettini, Cunego, Gilbert, could it be another double up for this man in front, Joaquin Rodriguez?
So very close to going to the top as we see Gilbert fighting at the back with Santa Romita. The Basque flag flies proudly, as does the support for the Portuguese nation as well. They'll be disappointed that Rui Costa was designated as domestique rather than main man today. Here is Purito. Irish fans cheering for him as well, but they'll be even louder in a minute when Dan Martin comes round the corner. It is so tight up here. Of course, a course designed to have everybody in single file, and really struggling after over 230 kilometres.
No, amazing scenes here at the ends of the Tour of Lombardia. I think everybody at home probably wishing Perito Rodriguez along here after his disappointment in the World Championships. The world champion Rui Costa was dropped to the bottom of this climb. The former world champion there, Philippe Gilbert, struggling now. But as we move back to the riders that are chasing Perito Rodriguez, and it's Valverde, Dan Martin and Pozzovivo is just behind. So a great ride here by Dan Martin, the rider in the blue. Valverde's a rider in second place. Pozzovivo looks as if he's been dropped, and it's Rafael Maica, a great outsider here. I think he was about 100 to 1 before overnight. So you can just see as we pan out now where Joaquin Rodriguez is. He's already on the descent, but he's got three very good riders behind him. And will Valverde chase him down and help Dan Martin and Rafa Maica to try and win Lombardia, or can Rodriguez stay away for the last 9 kilometres and do the double?
Greg Van Avermaet at the back. This is the chasing group then of Valverde, Martin, and of course just behind him it looks to be Pozzovivo. Joaquin Rodriguez became the first Spanish winner of this race in its history, amazingly. It took 106 editions for one of the great cycling nations on earth to win this race. Despite all the climbing talent they've had down the years, Joaquin Rodriguez Oliver was the first Spaniard to win this 12 months ago, and at the minute he looks set to try and do the same again. But is it going to be his national nemesis, Alejandro Valverde, to lead the chase, to chase him down? This could be a very, very interesting fight to the finish, and I think using the word fight is very much allowed in these circumstances.
Yeah, there's no friends when you get to this level of bike racing, especially in a monument like Tour of Lombardy. You see one of the cars trying to get past the Europe car rider, but this is where he went. Rodriguez on the right hand side. It was Pozzovivo set in the way, but Pozzovivo wasn't able to react, and the three riders behind Mike on the right hand side, Movistar's Valverde and Dan Martin from Garmin Sharp, are the three riders trying to chase Rodriguez down. And it seems to be Valverde is the rider more interested in chasing on the descent. I cannot see that Rodriguez has got much more than 10-15 seconds at this moment.
They're chasing. Where is Joaquin Rodriguez? A look up the road, round the next bend. In fact, round the next couple of bends. It's still not nailed on though, and Joaquin must pedal for his dear life.
Well, he was in this place last week in the World Championships, but Rui Costa is now gone. But again, Joaquin Rodriguez in the best place. It really depends on Maica and Dan Martin. If they help Valverde, then three riders have to, in the last 7 kilometres, have to ride together to bring this man back, because this is a man that's on form. Hard to see past Rodriguez when we come into this race, but again, will the three riders of Martin, Maica and Valverde combine together to bring this Spanish rider back?
The rider from Spain, from Catalonia, Joaquin Rodriguez Oliver. 8 seconds is his solitary lead. Oh dear, is it enough? That's the question. It is so difficult to point out. For those behind, it's all about finishing now. In the meantime, these three are interested. Valverde seemingly more than the rest. Dan Martin still in with a chance, and of course if he gets to some sort of fast finish, Valverde has to be the favourite, surely.
Yeah, Dan Martin can sprint as well. After 242 kilometres, you can just see the neutral service car pull over to the side to take up position behind the three chasers. Valverde has distanced Dan Martin in some of the corners, so I don't think Dan Martin is wanting to take too many risks.
It's deja vu with 5.8 kilometres to go. You and I sat in the commentary box 12 months ago and talked over Joaquin Rodriguez riding down these very roads in the wet, in the rain, with reduced visibility. to his first victory on the Giro di Lombardia, his country's first victory. Today he has 11 seconds on compatriot Alejandro Valverde, who leads a three-man chase group just behind. 11 seconds at the last count, but it can change at the drop of a hat.
Looks to be slightly extended now, and again three riders not really kind of combining well. Difficult to work in a descent like this. Probably better in front where Perito Rodriguez is, but again it's the rider from Movistar just distancing Dan Martin and Rafael Majka behind. So Valverde doing all the chasing at the front, and Dan Martin just following for this moment in time.
Remember, just like he was 12 months ago, plenty of people pointing out that he will be the world's #1 cyclist for a second year in a row, and again by winning this race. That's just to add to the sense of déjà vu. Whatever happens, it has been another epic battle, a wonderful race, and one that is about to reach its conclusion. In the meantime, desperately trying to get on again for BMC, and gaining a little bit of ground is Philippe Gilbert alongside Greg van Avermaet.
I think he's further down. He's coming up to Landa of Euskaltel Euskadi and Tom Dumoulin. They're a wee bit further back from the front of the race, but definitely Rodriguez has got an open road in front of him. But Movistar just distancing Dan Martin and Majka, and possibly the crash in the World Championships. Maybe Dan Martin losing a wee bit of confidence. He's looking behind to see if Majka is still with him. So the two riders in the middle of it, or the bottom of the screen, Majka for Saxo Tinkoff just at the back of Dan Martin. A bit of a distance now up towards the Movistar rider, and that is Valverde, but in front of them by about 10-15 seconds is Joaquin Rodriguez.
Movistar combining last week to victory at the World Championships. Not a good thing in everybody's eyes, certainly in the eyes of Portugal, not necessarily in the eyes of their host nation, their base nation, Spain. Front of the race with Perito Rodriguez, still on the descent into Lecco. Not too much of the final part of the race is actually flat. Of course, cliffs really dropping straight into the centre in this part of the world. The finish right by the lake. He'll know the twists, he'll know the turns. It's the same routine. Not that he saw much of it last year, not that any of us saw much of it last year with the weather.
Yeah, it's pretty much all flat now on the run-in, and as we said last week, Joaquin Rodriguez, this man with the #1 in his back after winning this race last year, in the same position he was in the World Championships last week. But fortunately for him, Rui Costa is not the man chasing him behind. It's his countryman Valverde is slightly distanced Dan Martin, the Irish rider for Garmin Sharp, and Rafael Majka for Saxo Tinkoff. So Valverde trying to chase him down. 2.2 kilometres to go. I don't think Valverde's got the legs to cross this gap on his own. For me, it looks as if Joaquin Rodriguez is going to double up here, and Valverde will soon be looking behind him to see if Dan Martin and Rafael Majka can help him to bring this man back. But with 2 kilometres to go, I think it's all over.
Joaquin Rodriguez will have been targeting this one just as he was targeting last week. Great defence of the title, perhaps about to be carried through. They win this one in twos, remember. Philippe Gilbert a few years back as well. All the talk of Damiano Cunego as well during the last part of the last decade. Inside the final 2 kilometres, and his lead at the last count was around 12 seconds.
As we're panning out now, you can just see this gap slightly opened up to maybe 15-20 seconds. And again, the two riders at the back of Valverde, Dan Martin and Majka, trying to combine together. If they were able to go with this man here, Valverde, then they might have stood a chance. But it's man against man now inside the last 1.5 kilometres. And it's the two Spanish riders at front in the red and the white. You've got Joaquin Rodriguez and the dark blue colours of Valverde behind. It does look as if he's going to double up here. You can just see the kilometre to go in front of him, and he'll be happy to see this after 241 kilometres. And it looks as if Joaquin Rodriguez is going to double up in Lombardy.
Well, he doesn't have to bother asking the cameraman to hold on to his glasses this year. That was a bizarre incident last year when he should have just thrown them away. Into the last kilometre anyway for Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver, the #1 in the race, and he's going to be the #1 on the day again. Turns right, going to go over the bridge, along by the lakeside, and ready to sign off another season as the top cyclist on the planet in terms of the UCI points system. The Katusha rider who started the season thinking that he might have to have a transfer to a World Tour team as an emergency option to ride the world's best race. All that was negotiated, and here he is, ready to lap up the applause again as he's 500 metres to go, and all ready to confirm himself as the winner, the number 2 winner in 2 years for Spain. Big deep breath, just wants to stay upright now because he knows there's nobody near him behind. One more right turn, and then it is that final run into the centre. Again, he looks round. Perhaps this is the moment where it hits him. The Lombardy region flags fly as Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver flies himself into first position. He celebrates a win, and it might not have happened for him last week, but the tears turn to celebration. Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver winning for the 2nd year in a row. He is our winner of the Giro di Lombardia. Alejandro Valverde, again a protagonist in that tearful show last week, is going to come across in 2nd place. And in the sprint for 3rd, well, it's Rafa Majka.
Something happened to Dan Martin in that corner. Looks as if he's come off again.
Chain.
Yeah, he's looking to try and stay on. You just see shorts are down, so it looks as if Dan Martin has actually crashed in the last couple of corners. Gasparotto is coming at him, and can Dan Martin keep on for 4th place? In fact, he does. He takes 4th place just in front of Gasparotto there, as we see the main group being led by Danny Moreno coming in. Peter Serre, a good ride by him in the left-hand side for Amiga Pharma Quick Step.
Great rides by everybody to finish this. Oh dear.
That's
that's the sponsor, isn't it?
Yeah, the pink paint in the centre of the road. He just hit his brakes there and comes down with the paint in the road there. But another great win for Perito Rodriguez in the Tour of Lombardy.
Out the way, and we do hope the rider who came down there is okay.
I think it was Posivivo, the AG2R rider, but just touched his front brake as we hit that paint. We've seen this happen before.
In fact, my thinking goes back to a worse incident a few years ago at Scheldeprijs in Belgium, pardon me. An awful crash after the finish line. Thankfully, everything looks to be okay. Everything's certainly fine in his world. Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver, 7 days ago, down the road in Tuscany, in Florence, crying his eyes out. Couldn't believe that, let's say, a traitor, as he's been labelled in certainly some quarters, had betrayed him. But today, he did it all for himself. Great work from Katusha to control things at the important moments. This was the result. Spain hadn't won till last year. Finally, they have 2 wins from 2, and Joaquim Rodriguez of Spain and Catalonia, the number 1 cyclist in the world. And almost a carbon copy victory.
Yep, this time it's just a bit of drizzle, no thunderstorms. Just trying to work out what his winning celebration was all about when he looked behind. But Valverde coming up for a very good 2nd place here for Movistar. Rafa Majka, a very impressive 3rd place here for Saxo Tinkoff. Does look as if it's a photo finish for 4th and 5th between Dan Martin and Gasparotto.
Well, they were strong when it mattered. Not too much left in the legs as they're being shaken across. We're all ready, and we're hoping to hear from Joaquim Rodriguez in just a moment's time.
Amazing victory, 2
Dan Lloyd.
times in a row. You must be very pleased today.
Oh, sinceramente espectacular.
Yeah, sincerely, absolutely brilliant, spectacular. Oh, we know it's a monument. And of course, I've been informed recently, so we knew we were going to go for it. And of course, pushing with great force on that last climb, and I did it. Well, short but sweet from Joaquim Rodriguez. Nice that he could understand the question, but we were going to get an answer in Spanish. 17 seconds, his margin of victory over Alejandro Valverde. Rafa Majka confirmed as 3rd, 23 seconds back from Rodriguez. And of course, the view on Lecco.
Here's the crash
with hazing. Now, this is the nasty moment behind. Just as he goes past the Gazzetta dello Sport's own sponsor. Brakes applied and a real mess. Brian, the winning attack again.
Yeah, impressive, really impressive. Pozzovivo was the rider that lit it up on this final climb, and just where he went last year, really on the steep part, put the power down, and this is what he does best. And he looks behind, nobody in sight, and another win. We did say that over the last kind of 8 years, a lot of riders double up in this race.
Tour of Beijing is coming up next week on Eurosport. Colton and Magnus will be with you for that. Friday the 11th, Central European time at 8:45 in the morning. If you're watching in the UK, Ireland, Portugal, Canary Islands, remember that's an hour earlier at 7:45 in the morning. Rodriguez, the winner today. The end of another superb season in European and world cycling. Rodriguez, the top man in the world. Thanks for joining us again on Eurosport this year. Brian and I will see you next season. Look after yourselves. Keep pedaling. Goodbye.